All right, and we are live. Welcome back to another episode here on the Esports Economics Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Clark, and today I'm here with Andrew Goodwyn. He's an esports attorney. I'm super excited to dive into this topic today because I have yet to have an esports attorney on the show, and I know that there's a lot of things that creators and orgs, whatever you may be in the esports space, there's a lot of things that people just overlook on the legal side of things. So I'm super excited to dive into this, get to know Andrew's story. So on that, Andrew, what's going on?
Not too much, Tommy. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to hop on here and answer some questions.
Of course, man. Yeah, as we're getting started, just give everyone an idea of kind of who you are and how you got into being a lawyer in the esports industry. So, like, kind of how that came about.
Sure. So I guess I'll just kind of start with my introduction to esports, which was before, before I was an attorney yet. So back in 2015, one of my best friends, Brett Feli, also known as MLC Stealth, he was competing in the World Championship for Smite. And at the time, it was like the largest prize pool. Him and 6 other teammates won something like 300 grand, give or take thousands and change.
Yeah.
It was like the biggest prize pool at the time. And esports, as you know, back in 2015 was like practically in its infancy. And so I was not in. I don't even think I was in law school yet. And it was, I was watching my friend compete in these games and kind of just seeing like this whole new industry that was like, man, this is like going to start taking off. And at the time, there was a lot of things I wanted to be able to talk to my friend about, give him advice about, but also I just wasn't equipped to do so at that time. So that's kind of where I just first learned of esports as a whole. And then once I got into law school, I was more interested in intellectual property and entertainment law as a whole. Because my goal, the reason I went into law school was because I wanted to be a talent agent for actors and directors and models and stuff, which is a whole nother story. But once I got in there, I started to really kind of discover all the different avenues you could take in the entertainment industry. And I also found myself the first year of law school, 2016, the year Fortnite blew up. I found myself like not watching traditional sports at all and just only watching Twitch. I was pretty much just watching Fortnite streamers and watching tournaments and stuff. I was watching Nick A30 was kind of my go-to. He was a really wholesome dude. But I was watching a lot of that, and I noticed I was like, man, I haven't watched any NFL or NBA this year. And so the rest of law school that kind of continued. Apex came out, so my viewership really shifted towards Apex streamers. And I just all throughout law school, I kept thinking, there's a big void of lawyers in this industry because there's a big void of any professionals in this industry because it's totally new. So certainly there are some great esports lawyers out there and that were there before me. You have ESG Law, Video Game Attorney, Bryce Blum. You got a lot of pretty notable guys in the scene. So I'm certainly a newer entrant. So once I graduated law school, my partner and I, Holland Henley, started a law firm in Nashville, Tennessee, doing entertainment law. Which entertainment esports, I can say I'm an esports lawyer. At the end of the day, I'm just like a contract lawyer. It's just more fun to say it's esports, but mostly I'm just dealing with contracts and stuff, right? Entertainment attorney is just a glorified IP and contract attorney. So we started the firm, and esports was like a space I saw that we could make a name for ourselves in, and it was the industry that I'd really become pretty entrenched in that past 4 years. And so we saw it as an easier way to break into an industry and be able to kind of put a mark on the legal industry in a way that would be easier for new young attorneys as opposed to just trying to enter into like the music field, right? Which we do that as well, but
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Now, in your work specifically in esports, are you mainly working with solo content creators, organizations, on the team side, on the brand side, all the above? Like, what does your clientele look like?
It's kind of all of the above. I think who Patrick Mahoney connected us.
Yeah.
As you know, he runs We Are Nations, which is a big merchandising esports merchandiser. So we've done quite a bit for him, quite a bit of work for him, and that's a lot of contract stuff, just business stuff. We have done some work for a few tournament organizers locally, and that's been pretty fun. We have some content creators as well. A lot of that is just dealing with IP rights and just helping them with any sort of licensing deals that they get and things like that. Certainly, that's like it's an area we're looking to expand, but we started our law firm, I guess, 4 months before the pandemic. So, we had planned to go to, there was an Apex tourney in Texas that I was planning to go to. That was, we were going to meet all the players and stuff. So we kind of had to, unfortunately, pump the brakes a little on, getting clients in that space. Luckily, we managed to do a few just from online presence and things like that. But certainly, when stuff starts opening back up, you'll find us at TwitchCon, Comic Con, any of the Apex tourneys, probably just because that's my game of choice. But I'm sure we'll end up at some League of Legends and Dota and all that stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, what does the day-to-day look like as far as what you're doing for your clients? I know a lot of people watching this might not really know like what the responsibilities of a lawyer in esports really looks like. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so kind of as I mentioned earlier, it's a lot of contract work. So when I say that, I mean just like reading and reviewing contracts for these players. Let's say, for example, you have a 100 Thieves shirt on right now. Let's say you are a content creator and 100 Thieves wanted to sign you. They're going to present you with an agreement. Now, something I kind of noticed is that, and I'm sure you've seen it in the news, right? You have that big lawsuit with Tfue and FaZe Clan, and a few other just players that are kind of getting hooked into these bad contracts. So really, a big part of what I'm passionate about is like just educating players on their position in the industry. So when they get a contract, I review it for them and also be like, look, the reason you're getting this contract is because this org or whoever's presenting you with this contract sees value that you can bring to them. So I try to help the players kind of understand their positioning in the industry, being like, look, you have value, you can push back when you need to. The worst they can do is say no, right? So definitely a lot of like player education is part of it, but a lot of it is just looking at the details of the contract and making sure that the legal operative effect of the language in the contract is in the best interest of my client and of the player, right? So that's what kind of the day-to-day looks like. It's just skimming Word docs.
There you go. Now, in these contracts, are there any trends that you see in these quote unquote bad contracts or contracts that are kind of predatory in a sense that players get stuck in these deals where they didn't really quite understand what they were getting themselves into? Are there any common trends you see among these? Because who knows, there might be a smaller creator watching right now that's thinking about signing a brand deal or signing for an organization. What are some red flags you typically look for? They're like, nope, I should probably either renegotiate this or just walk away completely.
Yeah, so I would look at quite a few things. Number one is I would look at the term of the contract, and that's definitely an area where you, as a content creator, as a player, have a little room to push back, right? So if they have a contract that's like a 5-year deal, you have to weigh some things, right? Maybe that's okay if there's like some guaranteed payment for those whole 5 years, but maybe it's like, man, 5 years. Well, if I blow up in, at 1 year, I want to be able to renegotiate the terms of this contract. If their org boosts me up and I get a lot of recognition, from the work that they're both doing, the org and the content creator, you want to be able to renegotiate that. So I'd say like look at the term, 1 to 2 years is definitely great. If it's anything over that, it's not necessarily not standard or not okay. It's just be aware that, maybe you want to be able to put that initial term down and renegotiate and do some option terms. That's one thing. Intellectual property is a big one. So intellectual property, I mean, patents, not really a big deal here, but trademarks, copyright, all that stuff, a lot of these content creators, when they're getting signed, it's a whole brand, right? So let's say Lulu, she's an Apex streamer and she's on Energy. So what she brings to Energy before she was on there is this whole Lulu brand, right? It's this whole Lulu Lovely brand. So I'm sure in her contract, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure there's a lot that speaks to the intellectual property, what she's allowed to sell outside of Energy. Is she allowed to sell her own merch? Is she allowed to sell merch with the Energy logo on it? So that's going to speak to their intellectual property rights. So these are definitely things you want to make sure are like real tight, because you don't want to accidentally, assign over all of your intellectual property and then not be able to do anything with it in the future. Some other terms, option terms, just make sure those are solid. I mean, there's so many things. And the thing is, with each content creator, with each player, there's unique aspects to their business, right? So their contracts might vary in different places than other content creators. So you kind of have to remember your position, right? You might have more bargaining power if you have, an average 20K viewership versus someone who has an average of 2,500 viewers, right? So just kind of being aware of your bargaining power and things like that, so you can push back on different terms within the contract. But I guess I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. But
no, this is great though.
Yeah,
I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think really the best thing for any players or content creators to understand is push back on the contract. You're not going to lose the opportunity just because you push back. And if you do lose the opportunity because you push back, then it's probably not an opportunity you wanted to go into, because then that just means if they're not even willing to bend a little bit on the initial contract, they're not going to bend anywhere else, and it's probably going to end up being a bad relationship for you. So just like looking over that contract, it's defining the relationship between the player and the org, or the player and whatever licensing deal they're entering into, whatever it is. It helps define the relationship between the two parties. And if you start hashing those things out at the beginning and pushing back at the beginning, then you don't have to worry about anything going awry. That's such a hard word. Anything going awry or going south in the future and not being able to get out of it because you signed a contract that says you can't. So just help define the relationship right at the beginning.
Makes sense. I think it's probably more of a struggle for definitely like newer creators or up and coming creators, because like you don't have that buying power, you don't have that like bargaining power just yet. You're not really in a position. But like you said, if they're even looking at you, they see that you can bring some sort of value. So you do have bargaining power. But I think a lot of creators don't feel like they have that bargaining power. So they just kind of opt for these contracts that are like, oh, I'm part of this org now. This is like what's going to help me make it big. When in reality, it's your own content. It's like you that's going to end up making you eventually, quote unquote, make it. So I think it's really important.
There's definitely, I mean, these orgs add value, obviously. You know, when I don't know about you guys, but when I'm clicking through the different streams that are happening, I'm looking, is there a TSM in the name? Is there an Energy in the name? Is there a T1? I mean, what's in there? Is there something I recognize that's going to be like, all right, I can filter out from the thousands of streamers right now? So they're definitely bringing value. It's just make sure that the value is worth it for you and that you define that relationship up front.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, in terms of the value that orgs bring, like you said, just the value of having that name in front of your tag on Twitter, whatever the case may be, that's obviously important. In your experience, have you seen any other, like, how would you say that orgs bring value to the players or the content creators?
There's a lot of ways, right? Number one is just the people that they can connect you with, right? If you sign to an org, you're going to have access to streaming with other people on their org. They're going to try and set that up because it's similar in the music scene, right? If I feature on another artist's song, then someone listening to that song from the artist that they like is going to go check out the feature and be like, oh, what else is this guy into? So same thing. So let's say if you're a big fan of, Hal, TSM Hal, and he's streaming with, I don't know, someone else on TSM, you're gonna be like, oh, nice, they're on the same team, they got the same level of trust, they're homies. I want to be, kind of a part of this clique, be a fan of this clique. So they bring those intellectual property, those names that they have, those trademarks. Those are powerful. So when you're cycling through who you want to watch, you want to go with something familiar. It's just the way it is. Trademarks are a source identifier. They let you know where the good or service is coming from, and if it's coming from a brand that you trust, then that's good. That's what you want. Sorry, what was the question one more time? I think I may have missed it there.
Yeah,
I
no,
may
you
have
answered
got
that
off track.
perfectly. I was
Okay,
pretty much
cool.
just
I wasn't sure if I
asking.
got off track there. Oh,
Yeah,
I
no,
have.
I was just
Yeah, yeah.
asking how
You're
they add
asking.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again, is like distribution and connections.
yeah,
Say you wanted to run some merch, but you didn't have the money to put up to, fund an entire merch run. That org is going to, likely put up the money for you to run that merch. They're probably going to have a designer to help you design your merch. All that thing. They're going to connect you with the people to kind of build your brand. Because while you're working under their brand, you're building your personal brand at the same time. So they're gonna have a lot of resources to help you build your content, help you distribute merch, and all sorts of stuff like that. So connections is a big one, big positive thing they bring. Also, sometimes players will live in like a house, right? And they'll
yeah,
pay for the rent, they'll pay for the food, depending on the contract. We've obviously seen some of those houses go way south. Smash
yeah.
Bros house, I'm looking at you. Geez.
On the houses too. I've seen. I forget where I saw this idea. It might have been a poster, a video, or something. But what type of liability is there, like in that sort of team house environment where it's kind of almost a work environment? Is that
Mhm.
something that teams need to take into consideration?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. And I think a lot of people are going to learn from this Smash Bros. Incident that you need more oversight on what's going on in there and needs to
Hmm.
start looking at it more like, an organization and less like, oh, we're a family, which like that's great. That's a great like
Yeah,
client, customer facing marketing tool. But at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're making sure your players are being safe and that nothing illegal is going on. So certainly there's some liability there, and I'm sure these orgs have insurance to cover that sort of
yeah,
stuff in the same way that I have malpractice insurance, right? If I screw something up, which is
makes sense.
inevitable because we are all humans. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't get too caught up on your mistakes, folks.
Love it. Love it. Now we got a question in the chat asking a question for Andrew. In your experience, what are the biggest differences between esports contracts versus traditional sports contracts, if any?
Hmm. Yeah. So while I will admit I'm still learning myself about all this.
Yeah,
I'm clearly
definitely.
pretty young myself. 29 this month, so I guess I'm not that young, but relatively speaking. So the biggest difference, I mean, think about traditional sports are all unionized, right? Their contracts
Yeah.
generally there's this collective bargaining agreements that go down. So it's harder to change those, but it's also they have a whole players union backing them up, trying to get these things done. All these player contracts in esports are just contracts that likely were drafted by some random attorney like myself, who um, is not dealing with some big players union or something. So these
Yeah.
contracts that these player contracts that they're getting that these orgs are putting out are not standardized. They're all just wildly different. Which there's always going to be some differences for in every contract, but just generally traditional sports contracts are much more standardized at this point. And esports contracts, there's just a pretty big lack of standardization. Yeah, I'd say that's the biggest difference.
Do you see that evolving over time? Obviously, esports is insanely young. So do you see over time unions forming, those sorts of organizations kind of taking root, and you're seeing more of that standardization take place 5, 10, 20 years into the future?
Yeah, I'm sure it will. My hope is that esports continues to move away from traditional sports and just carve its own
Yeah,
path because they're
agreed.
they're just so different. I mean, yeah, they have similarities, but they're different. So I think you'll see a lot of things become more standard. You'll see like talent agents are going to start cropping up. Right, Creative Artists Agency, the largest agency in the world, now has esports people on their roster. You have I think one licensed agency in California. I think you're going to start seeing like more uniformity in laws for people, for professionals dealing within the esports space, so that you see these people being taken advantage of less. So I think you'll definitely see a lot more like regulation come in as the boomers start to realize we got to write some laws for this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Um, so I'm sure you'll see a lot more standardization. But again, as the industry changes, it's going to be hard to make things standard until there's really a standard thing to standardize. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's hard because there's so many different esports and it's still evolving and it's super hard to just even know where it's going to be. Who knows? In like 10 years, we might have virtual reality and that might be a whole different
Yeah.
animal in and of itself. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's really difficult because I mean, even one of the huge differences between traditional sports and esports is that the publisher holds so much power in esports.
Yeah.
Overwatch they're creating this Overwatch League and they're trying to franchise it, really trying to model that traditional sports thing. I don't know if they're doing the best job, but that's to
Yeah.
be seen, I guess.
We'll see.
But where was I going with that? Basically, man, I just kind of lost my train of thought.
No,
We'll
you're
just
good.
have
You were
to move
saying
on.
how publishers have quite a bit of
Oh yeah,
power
yeah, yeah.
in going into
Publisher,
Overwatch.
they just have a lot more power, so they're going to be the ones kind of dictating a way a lot of this stuff goes. Like the League of Legends Championship Series. I'm pretty sure they are the only ones that hold the broadcasting right for the LCS, right? If ESPN wants to display that or whatever, they're going to have to strike a deal with League of Legends.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Got you. On the topic of publishers, I know this is a pretty current topic in the state of Call of Duty. I don't know how closely you keep up with that specific game, but right now there's this whole debacle with lack of anti-cheat. Like there's just hackers rampant in Warzone and the competitive scene, and not only is there no anti-cheat yet, or I mean, there kind of is in the sense that they're laying down some bans, but it's not quite what the community wants it to be. But there just hasn't been much, if any, communication on the side of the publisher. Like from an attorney's perspective, can you see a reason behind that? Because I mean, that's really the only rationale I can think of as far as why they would just leave people in the dark, as far as why there's no anti-cheat and they aren't really taking any major action on it. Can you see a rationale for that?
So I'm not very knowledgeable about that current situation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on with that. Maybe I would be if I had an extra 200 gigs to reinstall Warzone every week.
Yeah,
but I got a little bit of Call of Duty hate going on here because of those massive updates.
I feel
which
you.
I guess also reveals I'm a console pleb right now, but we'll deal with that later.
Same here. Yeah, I still play on console.
It is what it is. You got to save up for a PC. I'll get there.
Yeah.
Can I say a reason for being left in the dark? Probably just their attorney is like, don't say anything because you might say the wrong thing. I really don't know. I'm unsure.
Yeah. Got you. Yeah, I just had to ask you because it's the hot topic right now, and no one seems to know why. It's like it seems from the consumer's perspective, it seems obvious to say, hey, we know this is a problem. Like we're working to fix it. Just be patient with us. And I think if they actually came out and said that, most of the community would be at least happy with that there's like communication with there and like they acknowledge it. But up until very recently, that hasn't been the case. I think now there's talking about like working on anti-cheat stuff like that. But then there's another thing with the new league play situation. Like Valorant and those types of games have like ranked play. COD just dropped theirs. And again, with that, it's not quite what the community expected. There's been some backlash. And for the most part, the devs have been silent. So yeah, I was just trying to pick your brain on that, but definitely.
I mean, shout out to all the devs. I used to work at a game studio
definitely.
called Terminal Reality. It's now disbanded, but I worked on Connect Star Wars, and I was just doing quality assurance. So it was a Connect game, so I was basically just doing Star Wars dancing all like 40 hours a week. But I will say, man, the devs just need to be cut slack by everyone.
Yeah.
There is someone in that company who is the spokesperson, who's supposed to be the person talking about it. The devs, they work overtime constantly, probably should be paid more.
100%.
I feel for the devs, man. But the as far as customer service, these big orgs need to start having more communication. I mean, I have my own complaints. Okay, hello, cat. I have my own complaints with Respawn, right? When they make Apex and there's just total lack of communication about the competitive scene. It's always difficult to find out when tournaments are happening. And they've slowly started to kind of fix that and get more communication to the player base. I think a lot of it though is a lot of these companies are afraid of their player bases. I mean, Respawn quit Reddit entirely because the player base was just so vicious. So I
Yeah.
think maybe some mutual kindness on both sides is needed, and maybe that will fix it. So world peace is my answer.
That's always a good answer. I feel like that's never a wrong answer to any
Yeah,
question. But no,
yeah,
I agree with you. And I mean, even last night with that whole situation I was talking about, one of the pretty prominent names in the competitive scene kind of posted something on Twitter, super nice, coming from a genuine place. And I don't know if he's the main developer, but one of the developers responded and like acknowledged, like, yeah, we're looking into it. We'll keep you guys posted. And like that's really what the community wants. But I agree
yeah.
with you as
A
well.
little
Like
bit
the
of
devs,
just a little communication.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like people understand the devs work extremely hard, and like you said, they
Mhm.
really should get paid more than what they probably do right now. But it's just that communication piece. I think once they kind of figure that out in a way that obviously legally makes sense, it'll do
Yeah.
really well for them.
Maybe they just need to take a note from the Fall Guys Twitter presence and just get a really good community manager, or get more than one.
Yeah,
Don't put it all in the back of one person.
yeah,
Get a team. Maybe companies just need to focus more on their community manager teams. Who
yeah.
knows?
Makes sense. Now, getting back into like the contract talk, we talked about like players and orgs. How about when players are looking, or players or content creators are looking to sign with an agent or like some sort of talent agency? Obviously, there are going to be a lot of similarities in that what we just talked about. But are there any differences there? Any other things that you feel like content creators should be taking into account when they're looking for an agent or a manager to kind of guide them?
Yeah, and my advice on this is kind of the same advice I give to young musicians is this talent agent going to bring value to you? Are they going to I think so. Okay, so let me back up. I think what a lot of young content creators and artists find themselves in is this like, okay, I'm making really cool stuff. Now I need to build a team. When the reality
Yeah.
is, it's like in 2021, you don't need to build a team until you need to build a team. So if you're not losing time, say if you're a streamer, if you're losing time streaming and losing revenue that way because you're having to take time to effectuate these deals or whatever, then it's time to hire someone. But like hiring too early, I think is a problem that a lot of people face. It's like spend some time honing in on your craft, making sure that when there's a area of your craft that you feel like you're not delivering in, that's when you need to hire someone, right? So as far as talent agents and stuff, who are they going to be able to connect you with? Because their job is getting you jobs, right? And if they're not able to get you jobs, then why would they be on your team? So another thing that's really important there is have a contract with your talent agent, have a contract with your manager, and put some terms on. Put like some 1 year
Yeah.
terms or 2 year terms, because if they're not able to deliver in 1 year, who's to say they're going to deliver in year two, right? So just making sure that you've defined that relationship really good up front is the same advice I would give. It's just make sure they're actually being able to deliver what they're promising, and maybe specify in the contract about those deliverables, right? You could even say like you're going to guarantee this many jobs, and if you can't hit this level of jobs, then you don't get this commission, or you pay out this amount, or something. You can get really nuanced and creative in those contracts, depending on your bargaining power again.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think especially like you were talking about with smaller creators signing with orgs and kind of not feeling like they have the bargaining power. I feel like it might be a similar situation in terms of like managers and agents.
Mhm.
Especially like if you know them, like if you're working with a friend or a family member per se, like it might be kind of awkward to sit down and like get really like crystal clear, like you got to get me this and
Yeah,
this every month or every 6 months, whatever the case may be, or else like you're probably going to be gone. So I think that might be something that crosses a lot of players' minds.
yeah,
Um,
and I think like these content creators, you got to treat it as a career, right? This isn't just a
yeah,
hobby, right? You're not just playing games and
yeah,
or whatever. This is your career, so treat it as anyone would treat a career, right? Have contracts in place. Make sure you're just doing things by the book, paying your taxes, save for taxes if you're if you're self-employed. I
Yeah.
think you should be paying for those quarterly, but I'm not a tax attorney, so don't take my word for it. I know we pay ours quarterly, and it's brutal every time. Uncle Sam, man, he'll get you.
Yep. Every time. I feel you. Now, is there anything I want to move into, like your TikTok strategy? Because I think that's super interesting, and definitely want to chat about that a little bit. But before we move on from the contract talk, are there any other points you want to highlight there? Anything that you think we missed in terms of just key things for content creators or even owners? I know there's probably a few org owners watching right now. Anyone to understand when it comes to either writing a contract or reviewing one?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not contracts, but I do have some advice for org
Okay.
owners
Yeah.
and players, and that's on intellectual property. Get your trademarks. Let's talk about FaZe. FaZe had a lawsuit with a company called FaZe Clothing out in LA several years ago, and I haven't looked into this in a few years, but I'm pretty sure what happened is. They first got a cease and desist from this clothing company, and I think instead of just well, let me stop speculating. Basically, they got sued because they started
Okay.
using FaZe, and someone owned the mark FaZe for Class 25 on the USPTO, which is apparel merchandising. So get your trademarks because it's going to be way cheaper. My cats are fighting if you can hear it. It's going to be way cheaper up front to get a trademark than it is to fight someone a year or two down the
Yeah.
line. And not only is it going to be cheaper because you're not litigating, it's going to tell you if your trademark is even available, right? If FaZe would have just done a trademark search at the beginning, then they probably would have just ended up changing their name because an attorney would be like, look, there's this FaZe clothing that's registered right here. So your options are either get permission from this company, buy their trademark, or just go with another name, or just do it and hope you don't get sued, which is not advisable.
Yeah.
But if it can happen, like if it can happen to FaZe, it can happen to anybody, right? If you're creating these orgs with the intention of getting big, and intellectual property is often the most valuable part of your company. I mean, what is 100 Thieves without their trademark? What do they do other than sell hoodies with their trademark on them and cool
Hoodie
clothes?
orgs.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like their trademark is their most valuable asset. So you got to trademark that stuff as soon as possible. Not only to have the legal protection, but because you don't want to have to do brand awareness all over again and get new social media handles all over again when you find out a year, 2 year, 5 years down the line that you've been infringing on someone else's trademark. So,
Yeah.
orgs, players, trademark your stuff as soon as possible. It's important.
Got you. What happened with the Tifu situation? I know that was it him that sued FaZe or FaZe that sued him?
I think
What happened
he
there?
was suing, from my recollection, TVU was suing FaZe for basically just like a like an unfair contract, just like totally lopsided provisions. Probably, I'm sure the
Gotcha.
word unconscionable was in that complaint. So it's been a few years since I've looked at that. I'm sure that's settled out of court at this point
Yeah.
for some large sum. So yeah, I'm not sure whatever became of that. I'll have to check into
Okay.
it.
Cool. Another thing that came to my mind that I definitely want to ask you about is the whole DMCA thing with Twitch. Have you looked into that at all? How much have you looked into that situation?
Yeah, so you're talking about people streaming music that
Yeah.
is not technically owned by them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've looked into a little bit, and I think if I can remember correctly, one of these other esports attorneys started a company. I can't remember the name for the life of me that has royalty-free music for these people to stream. And
Okay.
my solution to this is that Twitch should get some sort of license in the same way that restaurants get a license and basically get the license to play everything in the BMI, ASCAP, CSAT catalog. They can get these blanket licenses from these different companies. I think Sound Exchange. I'm trying not to look anything up while I do this.
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I think. basically there's different companies that you can do royalty-free music, but at the end of the day, if you're streaming someone else's music, if you do not have a copyright license to stream that music, you're infringing on their intellectual property, and they can send a DMCA strike if they want, because you're breaking the law. There's really not a whole lot of ways around it unless you get permission from
Yeah.
the actual artist, which I've seen a ton of artists, at least smaller artists, being tweeted at me like, "Yo, can I use your music for this?" And them being like, "Yeah, that's fine." That's one way to do it, honestly. If you just really vibe with one artist, just try and get their permission, and you can just play their music. But yeah, if you're going to be streaming someone else's content, someone else's music, you have to get their permission. In the same vein, when you're streaming a video game on Twitch, you are operating under a non-exclusive license from the publisher to stream that game. So while they could just shut it down and not let anyone stream, they allow people to have this free non-exclusive license because they understand the the publicity that these Twitch streamers can get them to stream their game. So
Yeah.
basically, don't infringe on people's copyright. Try listening to royalty-free music, or try and get permission to play it.
Now, purely from an opinion point of view, like you had mentioned with video games specifically, it's pretty obvious the benefit of streaming, the free promotion. You have countless streamers playing your game in front of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. What's your opinion on the music situation as far as like, do you think it makes sense to crack down so hard? Obviously, it's the law, and like the law is the law. But in a utopian world, do you think it would make sense for musicians to allow streaming to take place for the sake of publicity, or do you think it doesn't really make sense?
So let's think about it like this, right? How does TikTok allow you to just add pretty much any song you want?
Yeah.
They're doing that because TikTok is paying. I think I'm saying this like I know. I've not actually looked, but TikTok is paying out money every time these are used, right? So in my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, and possibly some of it is just naivety of me being a young attorney, but in my opinion, Twitch should negotiate with somebody, I guess ASCAP, BMI, whoever it is, and I think they should set up something that's similar. Basically, like, you can play this music and you play it through the player on Twitch. That way we can log who's getting plays and we can pay out royalties in that manner. I think that's how it should go. I feel like there's a simple solution for this, and I feel like it shouldn't be on the content creators. I feel like it should be on Twitch, who's hosting all of these creators. There's got to be an easy fix. If TikTok can do it, I feel like Twitch could do something similar at least. Yeah, I think there's got to be something done. Who knows what'll be done?
Yeah, hopefully we'll see some sort of solution, whatever it may be.
There was recently, I think, just came into place at the beginning of this year. There's now, and again, I have to look into this more, I believe like a copyright appeals board or something to kind of streamline the process of copyright claims, in a similar way that there's the PTAB, the Patent, Trademark, and Appeals Board, which is kind of like a fast track for patent and trademark issues. So you don't have to run through, the state courts or whatever, different jurisdiction, just having like a specialized court. So I think there's a copyright one now. I have to look more into that. Probably should have already at this point, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's interesting because even with TikTok, I've seen a few people post on Twitter that videos from TikTok that they posted to Twitter got DMCA strike and and all that.
Yeah, because the license is limited to TikTok.
Yeah.
If you're making it on TikTok, it's got to be on TikTok. Because if you rehost it somewhere else, they're not able to collect, the plays and things like that. It's the same way if someone rips your YouTube video and puts it on, a different player, you're not going to get the ad revenue from that because it's no longer being hosted on the original platform. So you can't just repost that stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah, on the topic of YouTube, also kind of a selfish question, but I know some people are wondering this too. In terms of like taking, let's say, because for me personally, I make videos about like marketing, social media, that sort of thing. And every once in a while, there'll be like an example that I want to use in a video. And I know there's the whole like fair use thing, but there even the video that YouTube put out on fair use just adds even more confusion to the entire thing. So like, what are your recommendations there as far as like not necessarily repurposing content, but like if you're adding your own spin to it, like what's kind of what's the limit there as far as like what you can and can't use?
Yeah, so fair use is a defense, first of all. So if you
Okay,
get sued, then you would raise a defense of fair use, and then there's
got you.
different factors that go into whether a court would consider that fair use. And the factors in law, you have factors and elements. When it's elements, they have to meet all of them, right? Let's say if there were three elements of fair use, you would have to meet all of them to qualify for fair use. But fair use is a factored argument, so there's a variety of factors that courts have used over time that those have kind of become guiding principles of fair use. So there's nothing that says, there's no like magic number that like, oh, if I only use 2 seconds, that's fair use. Nowhere is that law. It's just like, depending on the factors, they're going to weigh them all together. A judge is going to weigh them all together in your defense and say, okay, then this, part of this was parody, part of, they're going to just weigh those together to say if it's okay or not. But like, think about it in the context outside of YouTube. So if you're driving down the road and you see a mechanic shop that is servicing German cars, and they put up they're allowed to put up their Volkswagen symbol, a BMW symbol, and an Audi symbol, because they're not using the trademark to say like, oh, this is a Volkswagen, this is a BMW, this is an Audi Center, this is a mechanic shop servicing those. So it's like fair use right there, right? They're just telling people we service these vehicles. So there's a lot of different ways, but it's just look at the factors of fair use. I'm sure I've written a blog on it in my life at some point, but you can probably just Google fair use factors and find a lot of good guiding principles. And when you when you're making your content, just try and look at those principles. Try not to use other people's content too much. If you are, make sure you're putting your own spin on it enough. I think there was a pretty big case in YouTube back in the day with H3H3 and that other cringy dude who was doing the weird pickup line videos. I can't even remember his name.
Was it there's several, but was it like Vitali or something?
It might have been.
I know that's like the head honcho of all of them, but I know there's like a whole horde of them.
Basically those, H3 had this long video where he just kind of played the original video and then put his own commentary on it. And I believe the court favored them because they altered it enough and made it their own enough.
Okay.
But there's just so many different factors that go into it. You just want to make sure you're kind of just Google fair use factors and try and follow some of those guiding principles.
Cool. And then another topic to dive into real quick. I got a question from the chat asking about contracts in streaming platforms. So like, I would assume this means like affiliate contracts for Twitch and partner contracts. Is there anything you'd recommend looking out for there?
Experience in contracts between creators and the streaming services. To be completely clear or completely frank, I don't have experiences in negotiating any contracts between the actual services themselves. But I think with any contract, it's just look at how the relationship is defined. You can pretty much apply that to all contracts. It's, what are they providing? What are you providing? Just define the relationship up front. Sorry, that's not the best answer. But
no, it's all good. It's all good. I think it's important. It's important to like be transparent because every once in a while this like goes off on a tangent, like trying to make you think that you know what you're doing. So it's always better to be transparent. Appreciate it.
Definitely. At the end of the day, I am a young attorney and there's still plenty for me to learn, in not just law, but in the esports space specifically. So maybe in 2022, I'll have a better answer for you. Here's to hoping, right?
Awesome. Now, as far as your TikTok, tell me a little bit more about that. What prompted you to get on the platform and what have you been doing on the platform?
Yeah. So I don't know how many of you guys are on TikTok, but I'm 29, so obviously I'm on TikTok.
Obviously.
I'm practically a boomer for TikTok standards. So marketing as a law firm, I will tell you, is painfully boring, right? People are not looking for like exciting content when they want to learn about legal stuff.
Yeah.
So I am a somewhat creative person, and I was just thinking, how can I market my law firm? Because I started one with one other friend, Henley and Goodwyn. How can I market this in a more exciting way, and how can I appeal to the audience that I like? And I was like, all right, I got to get on TikTok. And so I was thinking, how can I put a fun creative spin on legal marketing? And I was like, well, I do love to skateboard, and legal tips and skateboard tricks has a nice ring to it.
There you go.
Um, so I was like, man, I'll just do little TikToks. Actually, it started on Instagram, and then I was like, this would be way easier on TikTok. So I moved over.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, the original ones on Instagram, I was purchasing a beat from a friend of mine, Haru Odyssey, who also streams on Twitch, and is a really, really talented artist and singer and anything he puts his mind to. But yeah, originally I was buying beats from him and making the tracks, but TikTok, I was like, man, I can just use any track I want. TikTok is paying out these artists. So yeah, I got on there with the goal to make more exciting content, because if you look up a lawyer on TikTok, this is what it is. It's them holding their phone. Look at a contract. If you have a lease agreement, do that. And it's like right up there, you see like their double chin stuff. I was like, all right, we just got to have something fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go over there and do average skateboard tricks and give a little tip. But I mean, they're not horrible. I've done a tray flip on there, Casper flip, backside flip. So it's like I'm not a bad skater, not the best, but I'm probably the best skateboarding attorney. I think I can put
Relative
that.
to me, you're probably Tony Hawk. I'm clueless when it comes to skating.
There you go. I can do a 180, and he's only done what, a 900. Please, no. Tony Hawk's the man. What a legend.
Have you seen all those tweets about like people thinking they
Yes.
see Tony Hawk when it's
Yes.
actually Tony Hawk?
They're like, you look so much like Tony Hawk. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I've seen those. This is hilarious.
Yeah.
Um,
What
yeah.
have you found to do well on TikTok? Like what videos? What are there any formats, any types? I know you
Yeah.
said you kind of do skateboard tricks and tips. Is there any kind of specific format within that you found to work well?
Sure. I'll give the few tips I have for TikTok. Again, it's still a platform I'm learning, and if
Yeah,
I spent
definitely.
more time on TikTok consuming, I'm sure I would create better content. But it's like I consume so much, I gotta reel it in sometimes.
Yeah, my entire for you page is just dogs and Star Wars.
Nice. Yeah, I will say your first day posts get a boost. It's just a natural boost that you get on your first day for some reason. So make sure your first content you're posting on your TikTok, make sure you come out the gate swinging. As far as things that I don't know why some of them get more views than the other. I really don't. I'm still trying to figure it out. If anyone has advice or wants to do some duos on TikTok, hit me
Yeah.
up, help me.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
But yeah, just do something different, basically. Or maybe
Gotcha.
TikTok is actually just do something exactly the same. See, I don't know. Just try something.
Yeah, no,
do a
TikTok
bunch
is
of
the
different
one.
things until
Yeah.
it sticks.
TikTok is the one platform, man. Like I feel like I have a general idea of how it works, but man, I had one video that kind of quote unquote blew up. It got up to like 60K, but then I posted another one and it got like 200 views right after that. I was like, what the hell? Like it's literally the exact same format, slightly different topic, but exact same format, exact same lighting, exact same outfit, and such a stark difference. It's such a puzzling platform.
Yeah, trying to solve the TikTok algorithms is something I haven't sunk a lot of time into yet. I've definitely sunk plenty of time into trying to figure out my Google search engine optimization, but
Yeah.
I would never pay for SEO. I'm just going to put that out there. I think if anyone wants just some business tips, best thing you can do for Google My Business is on your Google My Business page, make sure you're getting hello reviews, and also in the name of your business on there, put a little bit about what you do. As soon as we put, instead of just Henley and Goodwyn LLP in our name, we put Henley and Goodwyn LLP dash Nashville Entertainment and Esports Lawyers. Literally the next week we changed the name, we started getting cold calls for entertainment lawyers. So
no way.
the name is important and the Google reviews is important. Everything else, I have not seen any sort of positive returns because of SEO crap that people try to sell you. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now on TikTok, have you seen any conversion there from like viewers on TikTok to clients?
No, and I will say it's not really what I'm aiming for.
Yeah.
It's more like a brand awareness type of thing.
Okay.
Just get my name because most of the people consuming on TikTok are not even really at the age that they need an attorney. I mean, a lot of the creators, yeah, are having big contracts, I'm sure. But it's more of just like I want to put Henley and Goodwyn or Lil Esquire, Andrew Goodwyn. I want to put that name in the mind of all these consumers, so when they start to think about a legal issue in their life or in a friend of theirs' lives, they think, "Man, what was that dude on TikTok? He was cool. He was skating." I want them to have that thought process. So no, there has not been any direct conversion. I will say I have had direct conversion from Twitter uh, to clients. So that's one.
Nice.
Instagram, it's more, I think the social medias are more about brand awareness than anything. I
Yeah.
don't think they're really necessary client conversion tools. I think your tools for client conversion is, again, the Google reviews and in person. Meeting people in person is what we've found to be the most effective by far in client acquisition.
How did you adjust to that during the pandemic? I mean, I would assume having to go virtual for at least a hot minute there. Like, how did you
Yeah.
guys adapt to that?
So that sucked, like
Yeah.
it did for everyone. So at least we weren't alone. But we basically went, we were a brand new firm. We opened up shop November 2019, pandemic hit March 2020. So we basically had uh, three, 3 to 4 months to establish a community. And we had also just moved from Texas. So we knew literally nobody in Nashville. So we were networking at in-person events before Corona 5 to 7 times a week. And so we managed to rapidly build up quite a large community here, and that helped. But as soon as COVID hit, we definitely had like a few months. I was just looking at the budget today, where numbers were depressingly low, and
Yeah.
so we were kind of just like, how can we do this? So we reached out to every single person we worked with and got Google reviews from them, and just tried to bump up our online presence. That's when Legal Tips and Skateboard Tricks started. I mean, we were just doing everything we could online to increase our presence, because there was no more in-person anything. So it's like I would spend time on Twitter just replying to people, hoping not like soliciting them, but just replying to
Yeah.
their tweets, just giving them interactions and hoping, okay, maybe I'll start to build up a little bit of a following, and eventually I'll be a public figure, and then the business will just come. So we just had to basically boost our online presence in every aspect possible. So that's what we did, and luckily it worked, and we managed to open a law firm, be profitable in the first year, all during a pandemic. I will say we're not exceedingly wealthy. I still drive my 1999 Toyota Corolla that I bought when I was 17, and I turned
Love it.
29 in 3 weeks. So still haven't hit the big leagues quite yet, but we'll see how much longer I have to drive this car. And once I have a new one, I'll probably have a blue check mark on Twitter by then as well, right? I think those will
There you go.
coincide.
Yeah, the life goal is the blue check mark. Once you get
For
that,
real,
doesn't matter what car, what house, what clothes, as long
doesn't
as
matter.
you live or die by the blue check mark.
Definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, as we're coming up on the hour here, just kind of want to open it up. What are you excited about just in esports and gaming in general? It doesn't have to be just confined to the law sphere, but
Yeah.
what are some things that you've been kind of seeing that you're hyped about going into 2021?
Man, I am just so hyped to get back out to some tournaments. Like
Yeah,
I've watched every single Apex tournament on all the online tournaments, and yes, they are fun and I love them, but it's like I just want to feel that energy of being in the room with the crowd again. I'm just looking forward to in-person events, straight up. And uh, yeah, just building my business and building the esports aspect of it specifically. That's pretty much, if we could transition our firm into like only entertainment and esports and just like stop doing business stuff, which we probably never will, that would be the greatest, right? If I could just do entertainment law, that'd be excellent.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
I'm definitely just looking forward to some in-person events and just continuing to build up my brand and just do well, basically.
Love it, man. Well, before we wrap up real quick, I got one more question for you. And I ask every guest this question. So if we got any repeat viewers here, repeat listeners, you're probably sick of me asking this, but do you drink coffee? And if so, how do you drink your coffee?
Yes, I drink coffee. I love coffee. I drink it black. I use a Chemex, and I get local beans from a small business in town. I switched up between the different shops. So that's how I do it. I drink it black. And if I'm at a coffee shop, I get a cappuccino, something that I can't
Okay.
make at home. So, but yeah, usually just straight black, baby.
Got you. I love that. I'm more of a cold brew person. It's easy, much easier on my stomach, but
Mhm.
definitely don't mind a cup of hot black coffee here and there.
Heck yeah.
So the only answer there that I really just despise is iced coffee.
Iced coffee.
Very different than cold brew.
I mean, well,
Oh,
what's the difference between cold brew and iced coffee?
well, cold brew tends to have more caffeine, which is always a plus. At this point, I'm probably just
Wait,
dependent on
what even is an
that.
iced coffee though? I always thought that was one and the same.
Nah, I think iced coffee is just like watered down regular coffee. That's pretty much what
Maybe.
it is.
I guess. I feel like if you order an iced coffee, they're gonna pour you a cold brew.
I don't. I feel like it would. I mean, it depends on where you go, but at Starbucks, I don't think
Well,
that's.
that's your first mistake, man. You got to
Yeah,
go local only.
yeah. Once the pandemic kind of lifts up a little bit, I'll be a little bit more of a coffee snob because I have no doubt that the quality is way better.
Oh yeah.
But even Starbucks right now, I haven't had that super often, which I do miss. But it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by. This was a super fun conversation. It's super interesting to me because, like I said, I haven't had an attorney on the show before, so I definitely learned a thing or two, and I definitely think that the listeners learned a ton as well. So, just want to say thank you for stopping by. And just as we're wrapping up, where is the best place for everyone to keep up with what you're doing?
Definitely. On Twitter and Instagram, it's Andrew Goodwyn. Make sure you spell my last name right. It's got a Y, not an I. On TikTok, it's Lil Esquire, LIL_Esquire. Right there, it just popped up. That's where you can find me. I respond to everything. I'm a bit neurotic. I have 0 notifications across all platforms.
I'm
So if
very
you send me something, I will respond, guaranteed. So, yeah, find me, talk to me. And
love it.
let's do this again in like a year, and I'll likely have more experience and more to say, and my answers will have more meaning. So,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely up for a round two or round three or just a yearly thing. 'Cause as always, and
yeah,
especially with
maybe every
esports, I
6 months.
can imagine. What was that?
Yeah, I said maybe every 6 months. I mean, at the rate we're
Yeah, there
learning
we
here.
go.
So,
There we
yeah,
go. Yeah, I mean, with the rate at which esports is kind of progressing, I would not be
true.
surprised if we see massive changes there. But yeah, again, I appreciate you stopping by, and everyone tuning in. I appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end or listening all the way to the end, depending on if you're on audio platforms, on YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening. I appreciate you. And if you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe or follow or do all the things you know what to do. Subscribe, follow, like, comment, share, all the good stuff. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I will see you guys in the next episode.
Thanks, Tommy.